Welcome to our season finale of Livelunch, and we have brought the big guns out. We've got the wonderful Jess Debenham with us. A little bit more about who Jess is. Actually, Jess is a very talented musician. You can find her on Spotify, Jess Debenham, and she is using the Livelunch platform to promote her
This
single.
is a promotional stop.
This is
on the
amazing.
Tour.
I feel like an influencer.
Single coming out later this month.
We have achieved influencer status. People are coming onto our show to promote themselves. Oh wow,
We're big time now.
Wow. This is well exciting.
But just tell us about your single.
It's called Infrastructure, and it was written in a time where God was working on rebuilding my infrastructure. So I was caught up in legalism, and I never fully knew the forgiveness of God for me in my heart. And this was a long journey of like many years. And I wrote this song actually just before God then broke through, and then I got freedom from it and felt forgiven and knew that he loved me. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow,
that's amazing. And so you plug Livelunch in the song? So how does it Wait, Jess is so good to have you with us. Jess moved to Brighton to be an intern with us here in Brighton.
Yes.
So how many years ago was that? 4 years ago? 5 year ago?
Oh, no, like 6 or so.
Oh, wow. 6 years ago, Jess moved to Brighton. One of our intern success stories, as most of them are. It's also the last week with our interns here in Emmanuel. So if you are an intern, shout out to Lucy Fellingham, who's been our comms intern. Thanks so much for all you've done. And applications to the internship are open. We've got a few more spaces. So if you would like to apply, it's not too late. WeAreEmmanuel.com/internship.
What are we talking about today? We got food from Itsu.
You're going
to make a joke about that? No, No.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
No.
Even though you
should have done. I
know, I'm sorry.
But it is great. Love sushi. On a hot day.
On a hot day.
Which
really good. Really good. We were like going back and forth about what sort of cultural conversations are happening at the moment, and the only
we
thing
like to look
about
through the news and see what's going on, and maybe things that we can dip our toe into, talk about that sort of thing. But it's just like wall to wall. It's really hot. That is the news.
It's really hot. That's all we've been saying. We've been talking about. Do you know when I moved to this country about 14 years ago in my early 20s from India, and
which comes up every episode, isn't it?
Yeah,
and now you're British citizen, and you had to do the test, and we're really grateful to have you here.
Thank you. And people are like, oh yeah, when you move to England, people talk about the weather a lot, and I just didn't get it. I was like, why do they talk about the weather a lot? Now I totally get it.
Now you just talk about it all
the time.
And
now I talk about the weather a lot as well. But as an Indian, as in former Indian, as
former Indian, you've just completely rejected that. You're not even associated with India anymore.
So ethnically, I'm still an Indian, but by law, I'm not. I'm British.
Well,
I need a visa to go back to India.
Well,
I can't send to India by myself.
Your passport and everything. But we had a big discussion before as to what you can hear the fan in the background, because we had a big discussion about whether we could have the fan on, and Yohaan was like really pushing that we needed to have the fan on.
Yeah.
But I was like, come on, mate, it is warm, but we can deal with that.
So we turned off the fan for like 2 minutes, and I was like, we fan on.
We all started melting.
Yeah.
But
it's hot. It's very hot.
How many fans you got in your house currently?
We've had this conversation where both of us have a similar story, where we both have one fan in our house, and both our spouses are like, well, we should get more fans for the kids' bedrooms, and being the miserly husbands and dads that we are, we're like, no, we get some more with one fan.
The kids sleep fine, and this heat wave is going to last another day, and then
exactly.
Back to
50 quid on a fan,
exactly. And then it's going to live in the loft for like most of the year. Store
it and all of this. So Matt just doesn't share his fan with his kids. I, on the other hand, put my fan in the kids' bedroom till they fall asleep, and then I bring it over to my bedroom.
Yes.
So I'm the better dad, clearly.
It's marginal, but yeah, okay.
Do you have a fan in your house?
Yeah. We have a fan, but it's looking nice on a shelf.
You don't even use it.
I literally thought to myself last night, why are we not using the fan?
Yeah.
It's literally just an ornament.
Well, especially
like so many questions about that.
Because it's nice and like copper, so it's higher.
This ornament fan, is it?
It's a decorative fan. You don't even know if it works.
It works.
It works. Oh, right.
I've never come across a decorative fan before. This is really fascinating. Could you take a picture of this ornamental fan?
Yeah.
Wow,
that's great.
Anyway, look at what the heat is onto us. 6 minutes in and we haven't started talking anything significant other than Jesse's story.
Do you want to ask about global warming as well? Because that's what everyone's saying, this is an effect of global warming, which it probably is. But let's not get down that rabbit hole.
We probably do need to have a longer conversation on global warming.
Yeah.
I think I have genuine questions as a Christian. How do we approach it? How do we tackle it?
Yeah.
On one hand, there's lots of different arguments and there's lots of different conversations. How involved should we be? How careful should we be with the stuff that we consume and our carbon footprint and just all of those things, electric cars, cycle to work, all that. I
remember when we did that series on anxiety on your mind, and one of the feedbacks, like some people saying, well, the anxiety you should have included in that series that you didn't was climate anxiety and that sort of thing. It's like, that's a good point.
And on a day like today, we feel it a lot more, don't we? I think we could easily have a really long conversation about it, because I guess you have like most things, you have a spectrum, right, of how involved you can be with the process. And I remember being challenged by a friend who was saying, well, if you hold on to Christian beliefs and there's an ethical undercurrent with all that you do, then you shouldn't be banking with certain banks, you shouldn't be shopping at certain places, you should be only eating certain types of food. And there's a whole bunch of things where the consistency across your lifestyle is something that you do need to examine. And in the negative impact on the earth and on our climate is something that should be considered. So all this to say we should have the conversation, should we?
No, it's a really good point. I mean, I remember when I was writing my second book, and Jess gets to talk about a single. So. No, but I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Is this the equivalent of me saying I'm British? You saying you write a book?
We don't talk about that every week. Maybe we should. Maybe we will.
Yeah, but this book I wrote.
I can't even remember the point I was going to make now. It was about environmental impact, and because the book's all about how we live out practically our Christian faith, that sort of thing. So I think I did a chapter on decisions around what we eat and that sort of thing, and it really did get me to think about should I be vegan? I came quite close.
Did you?
Yeah.
And?
Well, I'm not.
Why?
Because I'm eating fish right now.
I mean, if you've done the research, then how do you appease your conscience? I've appeased my conscience by saying I'm not looking into it. Wow, we're saying all of this stuff live. I think we should go to the preach, shouldn't we?
Let's put a pin in that conversation.
Yeah.
We'll come back to it. Next series.
We have been having conversations about how do we get more resources out there, how do we have more conversations about stuff. So, watch this space. And
also send your questions in, because we want to be speaking about the issues that people are keen to hear about as well. So contact us and say, why are you not talking about environmentalism?
Do you know, somebody commented on our video last week saying, we miss Joel Virgo, come back, which we asked people to do. So people are actually willing to engage with our content. Thank you to the person who did that.
If another person asks for him, maybe we'll get him back.
We could double up.
We could start a petition.
Anyway, you know how dodgy stats here? Yeah, we had double the amount of requests that came in. So it was 1 and 2.
We have been inundated with comments this week. Both of them asking for. Should we do pre-summary?
Let's get into the brief. So pre-summary, let's do the pre-summary, and then we can look at some of the questions we have to give people a heads up of what's coming their way.
Well, first of all, what's the term that's if next week is the penultimate, but what's the one before that? Ooh. I don't think there's a word for that, but if there was, that would be this week. We've got 2 more messages in the Promise Endures series, and this one was about Jacob expecting Esau coming together with Esau again, his brother, and so Jacob is afraid. Jacob is afraid of Esau, because we saw earlier on in the series, earlier on in Genesis, Esau wants to kill him. He makes that very clear, and so Jacob is returning to his homeland, and that's going to Esau is coming to see him, and so he's really afraid, and so we've got that going on. And then Joel was also talking about the second part. We're in chapter 32 of Genesis here, about him wrestling with God. So we're going to focus more on that this coming Sunday, but sort of acknowledging that as well. And so it was a message about partly about anxiety. Jacob's afraid, but also how God uses the circumstances in our life to accomplish his purposes in us. And sometimes they are very difficult circumstances that we wouldn't choose, but God actually uses that. And so it's all, I guess, about recognizing God's hand on that, recognizing how God brings us to maturity, and that's actually his kindness in doing that. Sometimes, well, often I know I do anyway, you look at bad things in your life that you wouldn't choose, and you think, oh God, just take this away as quickly as possible, and God's like, well, no, I'm bringing you through this for a purpose, and that sort of thing. So yeah, it'd be good to talk a lot about those things, like anxiety. We live in a very anxious society, culture.
Yeah, so I think that's the kind of things we're going to look at over the next few minutes is anxiety, fear for the future, working within, or just really helping cope with situations that we're in and seeing our life transformed. We're not going to redo the preach again, but I think just go a bit more practical into some of those things. How do we, it feels like a very earthy conversation, stuff that is going on now, and how can I, make more sense of reality. Yeah. And make more sense of what's going on around me now.
Yeah. Jess, you're reading a good book.
Yeah, I am. It's called Rejoice and Tremble.
Oh, show everyone. Go on.
Another little plug. No, it's similar to the series on Gentle and Lowly, and it's just looking at the fear of God. And it starts off by talking about culture and saying that we're in such an anxious culture, for a culture that actually we have really good healthcare, we're more comfortable in a lot of ways, but actually anxiety is just like skyrocketing. And he's just saying that actually, as we've rejected the fear of God, anxiety has become more prevalent, and the antidote to that is to come back to fearing God, which links to what Joel was talking about on Sunday about when we fear God, all the other fears they're smaller, and actually they fall away.
Is that I know that would resonate in your own life as well?
Yeah, I'm actually the week before last Sunday, I went up for prayer because I've been feeling anxious, and it's been keeping me up, and I'm a really good sleeper, so that's like really random. So I was like, okay, hi God, thanks for speaking. And actually, it turns out I literally had this revelation this morning. I was fearing all these things that were going to happen, so I'll just be honest, I was fearing financial provision. It's like, what if God won't provide? I was fearing with the release of the new single, what if I'm failing at that? Have I done enough? And fearing provision of will I be able to get enough money to record and release more? All these kind of things. And I was worshipping, and seek first the kingdom came to mind. So I went to find that and realized that that's just surrounded by the part that's like, Jesus says, do not be anxious. And before that, laying up your treasures in heaven and loving. You can't love God and money. And I realized, I've been loving these things that I was fearing more than God. So actually, in my case, it was a case of idolatry that was causing me to be anxious.
You're setting these things like on a pedestal of that needs to happen, and my life is going to be okay if that happens. That sort of thing. And
so in the end, I had to be like, yes, I know God. Looking back, God has provided for me so many ways, but in this instance, I need to be okay if He doesn't provide. So if this single flops, whatever that means, that's got to be okay. If I never get to record and release another song, that's got to be okay, because God, you've got to be enough.
Oh, amazing. So good.
Brilliant. That's so good. It's such a good point about making stuff, because the things that you were saying, I'm like, man, I woke up this morning feeling quite anxious about a couple of similar things. The single that I'm putting out. not the single.
We're still waiting to hear that, man. It's been in production for
keeps me awake
6 years. That's worse than Axl Rose. Anyway, sorry.
Axl Rose.
That's our reference there.
One of my favourite bands, though.
If anyone remembers Guns N' Roses.
Didn't they tour recently? Anyway.
Yeah, I think they did. I think Axl Rose is back out there.
Axl Rose and Slash, yeah, because they got back.
They got back together.
Yeah. But I feel like they got back together about 5 or 6 years ago. Man, this is such a weird conversation. Stop. Anyway. Such good memories of Guns N' Roses. Just listening to that music in my teenage years. Anyway.
What was the point?
I think the stuff that you talked about, there's just two things. I think with putting stuff on a pedestal was really helpful, because it's true, isn't it? You do tend to make those things idols, which is why it can then become a fear, and you get angry if you don't get them. But I guess, Matt and Jess, if you have some thoughts as well, Jacob had experienced God speaking and God delivering and some really incredible things happening in his life. And in the same way, you've probably experienced provision and God has provided. You know, I don't know what your situation is, but you look healthy and you look fine and happy and everything, and it's clearly God has provided for you. And the same is true for me, that God has provided for you. I've never I remember once not having enough money to pay rent, but literally the money came in later on that evening. But other than that, for how many years I've been in this country, I've always had enough to pay rent and to look after my family and put food on the table. But you still, and sometimes the provision has been quite miraculous and quite like, I wasn't expecting this money to come through, and it's come through. But you somehow still stay fearful. Like there's still, when we look at this story, Jacob was still fearful about whether Esau would kill him. Clearly, all the promises that were over his life weren't going to get killed when Jacob met Esau. There was a longevity to them. So in some ways, the fear and the anxiety that we can feel is quite unfounded. Clearly, when we say God's our Father, why would you be fearful? It's like my kids being fearful about their next pocket money, which is like £1 a week or something. They get like really anxious about getting £1 a week.
Have you adjusted for inflation recently?
Well, I had that conversation with them.
This is a long question. We'll get to it.
Why do we go back to feeling anxious?
Well, it's a great question. I think we all experience a restlessness of our hearts. Our hearts can't stop desiring things, and that was the famous quotation from Saint Augustine about our restless hearts. When they're restless until we find ourselves satisfied in God. And I think that sense of desire constantly being there, like we are anxious about stuff because, as you were saying just a minute ago, we want stuff, or we want stuff to go well, or we want that comfort or the security, and so we're anxious that we're not going to get those things, or we're not going to be satisfied, and that sort of thing. And so I think that's the walk of faith, isn't it? What you're saying, like to actually bring those, make God the destination of those desires. Actually, exactly what you were saying a minute ago, Jess, about trusting in God. God is going to be enough. It's got to be enough. And I think that phrase is really important. Like if that's the walk of faith, to keep coming back to that God being enough, because we are not just neutral. We constantly that's the sinful inclination that's still within us. It's like, are you going to be okay? Are you it's a restlessness in the heart.
I also think important to know who God is and his character. I think sometimes it can be hard to trust him because actually we're believing something false about who he is. And so like taking it personally, the last couple of years, like with the grace thing, like fearing that he would distance from me, and all those fears that came with that was because actually I was believing something false about his character. And so
absolutely, that's so good. Yeah.
With like to keep trusting, sometimes there can be something that needs to be like uprooted and be like and replaced with, actually no, this is who God is. He's a good father, and he has good for me. And that's
the journey of Jacob, linking back into this the series that we've been doing. Like that's the journey of Jacob. He's the more he sees God, the more he understands, starts to grasp who God is, the more he trusts him. The more he sees him, the more he trusts him, because at the beginning he's just got a very vague sense of God and the promise over their family life, but you can tell he's self-reliant. But actually, through what we've seen through the series, is that God's revealed himself and spoken at different points, and each time it sort of inches Jacob a little bit forward on that actually being able to trust. And even where we've got now in 32, and even where we'll be at the end of the series in 33, the next chapter, when actually he does meet Esau, he's still not there. There's still aspects of fear and unbelief, and he's trying to do all these things to appease Esau and not really trust God, even though like God is clearly on his case and God is clearly saying everything's going to be okay, my promise is over you. He's still unsure about that, and I guess that is, in that sense, we all really resonate with Jacob, because we all go through that same thing of like, I know God is good, I sing about it every week in church, and then on Monday morning it's like, oh God, you're going to be good, I'm not sure I can trust you this week.
We've spoken to people who maybe have their desires in things that could become idolatrous. So I guess you would associate those as things that could get corrupted. But what would you say to people who are anxious about very like real things, like the health of a loved one, their own health, putting food on the table, looking after their kids, those kind of things? What would you say to them?
Well, I think we've got to be careful that it's like, just the opposite of not being anxious. Opposite is not just like being blasé about stuff. Like, you can be concerned for things, but be concerned in a faithful way. And so it's like, it is faith and anxiety on the spectrum, as it were. So having a sense of like, it is weighing on my mind the fact of providing, like I was talking a few weeks ago, like that's a good, if that's a sense of responsibility, that's good. So we mustn't sort of think that a Christian is just like, I just trust God and I just drift through life and nothing really affects me. That's unrealistic. That's not good. But I think it's when we have those concerns, what we do with it, and is ultimately, what Jess was saying earlier, recognizing that we are not in control of those things. Like, part of the reason, what we were saying before about our culture being so anxious, prone to anxiety, is that we have told ourselves that we have a load of control over our lives. That we are empowered to live however we want to live, and that sort of thing. And so when you think you have control, it's all on you, and you think you control. So when things are not quite as you want them, that's on you, and it's a pressure on you, because you're told that you can control your destiny and that sort of thing. But the reality is that is a complete lie. We don't. We have an illusion of control, and there's moments in our lives that we realize how powerless we are. We think we're in charge of our own destiny, but we're not. And actually, other people in maybe different cultures or different contexts, they're not, even though they're probably facing more difficulty than the average Westerner is, but they're not anxious about it, because it's partly to do with the fact that they didn't think they were controlling circumstances anyway, and they've learned to navigate through. It's actually that lie of control that actually makes us anxious. Now, the gospel cuts right across that and what we've been trying to do in this series is saying, no, God's in control. God's faithfulness is what you depend your life on, and part of that, you cannot be in control of your life and completely trusting that, like those two things. That's why Jesus says you've got to give up on your life. If you lose your life for my sake, you'll find it. And it's what you said before as well about seek first the kingdom. So it's like, give up on your own kingdom, seek first my kingdom, and then I'll add everything else to you. You can't hold both tightly. So
that's really good, man. That is really good. I think the other thing that you realize when you come across moments like this, where you see the Jacob in you, and you're like, oh man, why do I thought I was over this, and I've been confronted. I feel like I've been through one storm, I've come out of it, God's provided, He's looked after me, yay, I'm on the other side, and then bang, you hit the next one,
another storm,
or Esau rears his ugly head again. You're like, oh no, and why am I should have come out of this much stronger. And Jess, you said you were sharing a story about something you experienced a few weeks ago, a few maybe a few months ago.
Yeah. The building opposite the Clarendon Centre is literally like with COVID has been like
it's happened
building, and after the breakthrough time and like knowing God's forgiveness, I was like, great, I'm free now, like woohoo. But actually like realizing that it was to do with me worshipping myself and people pleasing and putting that onto the character of God, that I wasn't feeling forgiveness before. So giving you context for like, I was still facing the temptation to people please very regularly, and I was aware of it, but like it was a constant like choosing. And I was like, oh, do you know what? I just still feel like I'm not where I thought I was going to be. I thought I'd be this like wonderful building now, you know. And I saw the building up there, and yes, it had the frames, but there was stuff still hanging out. There were people still clanging. There was still a lot of work to be done, and it really encouraged me. I was like, nah, God is working on me, is making me more and more like Jesus, one degree of glory to the next, and that's going to keep on happening until heaven. And like that's good. He loves me, and that refining work.
That's brilliant. You know what that reminds me of?
He has begun to work in you. Was it actually?
Yeah.
Oh. God, you'll feel it better than I will.
No, that's it from Philippians chapter 1. He who has begun a good work in you, confident, bring to completion. Yeah. Which is what we'll be diving into next term.
So on that, did you say we misappropriately apply this to our own lives when the context is the church?
It sounds like you've been part of Thrive every day. Because that's where
is that what you said?
Yeah.
I have been in Thrive every day.
That's a good series, that is. Yes, that verse is from Philippians, and it's about speaking to the church there, saying actually God's started a good work in you, he's going to bring it to completion, but it's a plural you. It's not just we interpret individualistically. It does apply individualistically, I believe, but we are going to be doing
Philippians.
This is me changing into. We got a couple of minutes left, so I thought I'd talk about what's happening next term.
Well, before we go to Philippians, we've got a series coming. This is our last live lunch, and then we're breaking for the summer, and then we don't know whether we get renewed for our 10th season. Or
we have to speak to the people upstairs if they're going to
our 13th season.
If they're going to commission another series, we'll have to see
what conversation, season and series.
Oh yeah, well the season is American, isn't it? Come on, mate, you got your British citizens.
Our 13th series.
You got to do it.
Of Live Lunch.
It has infiltrated because you do get British things, podcasts and things called seasons, but
season's very biblical.
Well,
yes, there we go.
I can't argue with that. Anyway, yes, we are, over the summer we're having some guest speakers.
And we're doing a preaching series with the glamorous title of "If I Could Tell You One Thing."
Yeah, so they come in, they bring in their
lofty
wisdom.
We pitched it really high. The preachers better deliver.
Yeah, the best. This is going to be the best preach you'd ever hear from these people.
We've got some really good speakers lined up. We've got Glenn Scribner, Terry Virgo, Kenny McCouche, Stephen Dawson / the Site Leaders,
and Malcolm Gaiman.
Woo.
Yeah, so people, literally people flying in to do this series.
Wow,
that is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. But then when we get back in September, we kickstart a new preaching series in the autumn term. And autumn feels so wrong to say that. But what is our preaching series in the autumn term?
Well, yeah, we're looking at the book of Philippians. And so this in that it's a letter that Paul wrote from prison, and but you know, if that's all you knew about it, you would think it'd be a letter about how hard it is to be in prison. But it's not. It's like so full of encouragement, and it's such a joyful and positive and encouraging letter. And so it's all, as you can imagine, being in the Bible, it's all about Christ. It's all about how he is the person of joy, and actually knowing him is our source of encouragement. And so we thought that would be a great book to go into as we come out of this tough season that we're in, and just lift people's heads. And that's a great one for the autumn series.
Brilliant.
Autumn term.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. Thank you so much for joining us on Live Lunch. Thanks for joining us, Jess. We hope the single does really well.
Thanks.
Yeah, all 5 of you, please check out Jess's song on Spotify. Matt, as always, it's been great.
I think we should need to talk more about Guns N' Roses now. We've stumbled on a mutual interest there.
On Tuesday afternoon. across.
Well, I'm on holiday next week. Are you on holiday? You're away.
I'm in New Day, and then I'm around.
Oh, you're alright. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in September.
See you later.
Woo!